Welcome to Hemmings Road to Improvement, our new road trip series where we take an old school vehicle and, with the help of some of the biggest names in the SEMA universe, update it over a 3,500-mile cross-country journey to benefit the children that SEMA Care seeks to help on a daily basis.
Welcome, everyone, to another Road to Improvement Extra. As always, we're talking about the bigger Road to Improvement episode where Mike Musto and Elana Scherr are traveling with a 1981 Chevy Suburban across the country, upgrading it along the way, which means the other person here on your screen is Mike Musto.
So,
thanks for coming again, Mike. How's it going?
Good, man. Really good.
We got a lot to cover today, and we're going to try to be quick. But so I don't even know where to start. But I will start with side note. The truck is up for auction. We've always said we're going to sell it for the SEMA Cares charity. That's live on the Hemmings auction site right now. We'll put the link in the description. And then moving on, I know I said this last week, but this is my favorite episode so far. And one of the pieces was there's just a lot of character in it. And watching it was like, for anyone who hasn't met Elana, that's exactly what it's like to hang out with Elana. It's like she tells you some sort of weird, obscure trivia that makes it totally exciting and interesting and like full of all this information.
That is correct. That is totally correct.
And I mean, yeah, you got that. You got there for 3 days straight, right?
Yeah, no, it was. We had a lot of fun. I mean, road tripping with Elana is a blast because she'll just be like, "All right, I found this thing. We got to go here," and I'm like, "What is it?" And then she'll run into like just a small summation of exactly where we're going, and it always turns out to be a great place. And this episode was fun because we didn't do any parts installs. We just went to places that Elana knew about, which was a blast.
Well, and I loved it too because we talked about this before. Like both of us are reluctant or not practiced at pulling off to the side of the road. And
correct.
And this is like, and one of the reasons it's like, it's just a statue. Like, what am I going to do? Stand there for 10 minutes? And it's like, stand there for 10 minutes. So you guys did this. Like, what did you learn out of the experience?
Honestly, it was just fun. Like, we saw the big Bowie knife in Texas, and then we went to the bug ranch. These are places and things that I never would have done because you're like, it's a big knife, or it's this, or it's that. But when you see it in person, and it's cool because a lot of these attractions are somewhat in the middle of nowhere, but sometimes the middle of nowhere is a great place to be. And you'd never go there if it weren't for these kind of roadside things. So it was great. It was such a wonderful experience.
I do have to give you a little bit of trouble. I feel like, again, that's part of the regular checklist on this show. When you're in Texas, you're like, oh man, I love small town Texas, the architecture. I'm looking at that and I'm like, there's a bunch of towns in Michigan that look like this too. I think that outs you as a city slicker.
No, well, it totally does. I mean, everybody should know at this point that I was born and raised in New York. So like I'm in the concrete world, but the fact is that for me was super small town. And that town of Bowie was I thought it was super tiny. Like it's not something that I'm used to. I've driven through loads of towns like it, but every time I see it, I'm just like, man, it's just, just a really kind of small, tight-knit community. It was really cool.
Well, and again, it does get into the benefit of getting off the highway, right? Because you never think that those places exist, and they're towns anywhere from 2,000 to 8,000 people or something. They have one center strip, and you're like, if you're driving off highway, to me that's the best part of it because you get a break in the scenery and you see all this stuff. Which amazing segue. I'm going to congratulate myself. That was the other thing about this episode. The scenery is incredible. I remember the sunset photo from the gallery when you guys did the road trip. Talk about how pretty everything was.
It was gorgeous. I mean, when we went down Route 66 through Kingman to a really small town called Oatman, and the scenery getting to Oatman, you're driving through these beautiful, like, tight, twisty roads and these canyons, and we found this small graveyard, which is in the video, and it's like on this outcrop hill. When you park and you overlook, it is some of the most beautiful scenery I've ever witnessed. And it was great. Every now and then you might pass a little car or something like that, but you were in the middle of nowhere and you never, ever, ever see this from the interstate. Like the only way to see what we saw is to take a path like this, get off the interstate and really stop and look. And that was one of the problems. Like we didn't want to leave. Like we were still someone on a schedule, but I was like, I just want to hang out here. It was just gorgeous. And like free roaming donkeys, like you'd come around a corner and there'd be a donkey sitting in the road, or a
Yeah.
llama or something like that. And you're like, what the hell are we? It felt like
Oh, the thing that always amazes me is how close this is to the highway and the stuff that like you get off and you're like, what is everybody thinking? Like
yeah,
I stayed at a chain campground recently, and it was 3 miles off the interstate. And again, you have no idea. You never drive by it. You never pass it on your highway trip and go, oh
correct.
yeah, like I could camp instead of a hotel, but it's
Right.
right there. And
Yeah.
all the stuff you did too. It's like you weren't that far off the highway, were you?
No, not well, once off when we got off Route 66, yeah, we were kind of a ways off the highway. Like to go to Oatman where we went, we were a ways off the highway. But what an unbelievably great alternative route to get to where we were going. I mean, there's
Yeah.
always an alternative route, and it's just I think a lot of people, if you have the time, you have to do that. You do have to stop and smell the roses and see what's really around because you're missing so much stuff. And that's something that I have to adopt. We talked about this that you have to adopt where it's like take that extra hour if you could swing it and go look at this stuff because like the small towns and these little outcrops where you just stop and you look, it was amazing. Like I'll never forget where we went. It was stunning. It was gorgeous.
So on that front, you said you're on a schedule. In the first, I don't know, 10 minutes or so of this episode, I'm like, there's a lot of stuff here. Like, how much are you guys? Is there TV magic here where you're compressing days? Later, you mentioned, I think Elana mentions that it's 3 days, but where I guess at least first with the Bowie knife and
Mhm.
the big cowboy, how much of that was one day? Because it seemed like a lot of stops in one day.
A lot of it was one day. We had done the oh man, I think it was the Bowie knife and the cowboy were definitely one day. And then I know we had gone to Amarillo. From Amarillo, we went to see Cadillac Ranch and then the Slug Bug Ranch. And then we also saw, believe it or not, a combine ranch that was kind of wild. It was just combines that were dug into the ground. Um, and then we went to Oatman and stuff. So yeah, it was over the course of a couple of days, but it was great because from where we were in the Dallas Fort Worth area, we had to get back to Los Angeles. So we really did take this really creative route that Alana found and it included finding an amazing junkyard with all these great cars. Some great tiny
Yeah, I
little
wanted
rest.
to talk about that because that was, I
Yeah.
mean, it doesn't, you're not quite brought to tears, but it's probably the most emotional part of the show though so far. I mean, you're all kind of, you're both kind of just like, wow, and staring at it. Yeah, walk us through like what it feels like staring at all that stuff
It
for
was
you.
great. I mean, what a find for like because we had broke it down. We threw a belt, and Alana and Jeff had gone out to the auto parts store, and they found this junkyard. It was it was good and it was bad. It was good because honestly, everything in that junkyard was pretty salvageable. Like they were solid bodies. You could absolutely pull those cars out. But it was kind of like a time warp because like I always want to know the history of a vehicle when I see it in a junkyard. Like where did it come from? Who bought it? Who picked that? Like that DeSoto was red and white with a white. Like it was so cool. And you just kind of want to find out how they wound up there, and like what was the owner's story, what drove the cars there. I don't know. It's just really cool. And then you want to start saving stuff. Like Alana and I talked about it for like hours. I was like, I would take this Nova and I would take that DeSoto and this Pontiac, and it's great. I mean, stuff like that, everybody should stop and look because it kind of just invigorates you to go out and kind of buy more stuff and build stuff and save more stuff. It was really, really fun.
Yeah, or take care of what you have. This you mentioned
Yeah.
the van. That was another favorite part of mine. That was, again, speaking of TV magic, you guys were either hypnotized by the road or just like so into the moment, you forgot that you were in a show and had a support vehicle to go buy parts.
Literally.
How did that
Yeah, we
happen?
we really did. Yeah, we just did because like, you have when you film something like this, you have your main vehicle, but then you also have the crew vehicle, right? Whether you have one or two vehicles with you, we had one. Um, and we were literally sitting there and I was like, ah shit, all right, now we got to get to the thing. And literally Jan, who was our director of photography, was like, dude, we got another truck. Like we could just go to the auto parts store. And you just for some reason you don't think about that because I have been in so many situations with my older cars where I haven't had a support vehicle and I've been on the side of the road. And so you have to figure out how to patch yourself up and get rolling again. And this was just one of those circumstances like extra vehicle, like let's utilize it. Why spend 6 hours trying to figure this out? Like solutions right there.
Um, yeah. So belts aside, you've got the car, you got the major upgrades done, covering a lot of miles. How was it, especially how it compared to the initial trip out of Grand Rapids down to Tennessee?
Oh, it was night and day. I mean, the fact was we were now cruising at 75 miles an hour, 80 miles an hour. The AC was on. We were nice and cool. It really does now. Now the Suburban is like a almost modernish, right? It's still a big green box, a big green metal box, but from a mechanical perspective, it's great. It starts first turn of the key, right? AC works flawlessly. It's comfortable. And we're going to do more improvements to even make it more comfortable, but it's great. It's great. The transmission, we went from getting, 9, 10 miles a gallon to like at spots we were getting like 14. Like that's pretty good, like 14, 15 miles to the gallon. So between the EFI and the fuel injection, it just really improved everything. And then the AC just made those kind of hot days tolerable. We didn't have to drive with the windows down, which was really nice.
Good to hear. So one of the items, we have a commenter who I think in 2 episodes so far has mentioned this, and I was going to bring it up just, to give a shout out to the comments, but Elana actually mentions it, which is the doors. So in the comments on YouTube, this person watches all our videos. Thanks for watching. And they say, I can get those doors working better. Unfortunately, we appreciate the offer, but it's going up for sale soon. The next owner can reach out if they want to fix the doors. But Elana did note that she takes a piece of the door with her when she closed it. What was going on with the doors? What was wrong with them? And did you fix them at all?
Yes. So the door panels were original door panels that had been resprayed a million years ago. And they were old and crusty. And so every time we shut the door, a piece of paint would flake off. Or like your elbow would rub against it and it would come up and it would be white because the paint would come off on your elbow. So that's really was the issue with the doors. The doors themselves are totally sound. It's just the 40-year-old, door cards were just shot. But yes, we do remedy that, which is good. And that's in an upcoming episode.
All right. Well then, let's jump right there. Like what's, unless you got something else from this episode that you need to share.
No, I mean, the biggest thing was just this. It was so needed because at this point we had been on the road for, over 15 days. And this was the first time we had actually just said, you know what, the hell with this. We had actually extended it a day so we could do just this, right? To get on the road and just do sightseeing. And it was really kind of a mental breather for not only myself and Elana, but the crew as well. Because when you're running 15, 18 hours a day, you have to stop, you have to recoup. And so even though the crew was working in regards to filming this stuff, it was a mental reset because you were actually out in nature. It was a lot of fun to do. We weren't beating each other up by trying to cover 600 miles a day or whatnot. And like, this is one of those things where you have to say, stop for a couple hours here and there and like look around and take stock of where you are, because these places are also going away, right? These places are harder and harder to find. If you have the time, stop and check them out. It'll be the best thing you ever did.
Yeah. Before all the development creeps in. All right. So next up, you guys tease it in this episode. You're looking for more power. Next stop, LA. What are you guys going to do?
Next stop, we go to AFR. It's time for a little power increase. So just do some heads, do a cam, spruce it up, get a little more oomph out of this thing. And that makes a huge difference. And we go to the AFR manufacturing facility. We see how heads and cams are done. And then we put everything in and Big Green all of a sudden gets a little power bump, which is cool.
All right. I'm looking forward to it. I hope everyone out there is too. As always, thanks for watching Road to Improvement Extra. Bigger thanks for watching Road to Improvement. That's what really matters. As always, please subscribe on our YouTube channel. And if you got anything else, put it in the comments. Thanks again, Mike.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, and really quick, lastly, like Mike said earlier, go to the Hemmings auction site. Big Green is going up for auction in the next, it's already up there. The auction starts, I think, in 7 days, 6 or 7 days. It is for charity to benefit SEMA Care. So if you're looking for a great vehicle that's fantastic and fun to drive and great, but also that the proceeds are going to a great cause, check out the auction, bid with all your money, and buy yourself a great truck.
We'll have the link at the top of the description. Please check it out.
Cool. Thanks, Mike.